For a smart home, new integrations need to be easy and helpful, but not only this, they need to suit your home. I'm James Hertz from MUO, and if you're after a more natural look for your windows that doesn't compromise on privacy and convenience, then let's check out how well the SmartWings Motorized woven wood shades accomplish this. So while motorized shades should give you an idea of what you're in for, there are some design nuances to keep into account. First off, there are a variety of natural designs to pick from, so regardless of what color you choose, you can really match the ambiance of your home. Now, it is a hand-woven product, so most of these are made from bamboo and jute, so regardless of what design you're picking, you're going to end up with a unique one per shade. Now, another thing to keep in mind in terms of variety is there is the option for either a 50% blackout with the shade or 100% blackout. So you're going to want to choose what you want for your lighting in your home. While personalizing a smart home item is great, there are some things you need to think about. Now, for this shade, there is two mounting styles. You can either do an inside mount with your window or an outside mount. Now, to make this easier, SmartWings has provided a few ways to figure out what's best for your home. You can either check out their facts, which will give you some information on both types, or you can go to their YouTube channel from their main website and view the video there talking about measurements for your mounts. Now, basically what you have to account for is a few things when measuring your window. For the width, you measure from the top. When you're measuring the height, you take the left, the center, and the right heights and find the tallest one to record. And then for the actual depth, you go from the front to the glass of the window. Now, when you're actually inputting the width and all those other measurements, you want to give the exact ones, but SmartWings will deduct 0.2 inches from the actual width during production to account for some actual spacing for installation. Overall, it's a pretty easy process, but you do want to be exact when getting these measurements. With your measurements and your design choices out of the way, your next and final big decision is what smart motor to actually choose for these woven shades. Now, by default, there is just a standard smart motor, which you can operate with just SmartWings multi-channel remote. From here though, there are some more options. You can either go with a Alexa-based smart motor or you can go with a HomeKit-based smart motor. Now, if you are using Google Home, you're going to have to use a Zigbee hub, but you can also connect via that. Now, when I did purchase the actual Alexa smart motor, my old Echo Show had just aged out. So you're going to want to check specifically which Alexa-enabled devices are supported, but it is relatively cheap to just go with an Echo Show 4th generation and connect your device. Overall, just be sure that you're aware of what you're choosing. Now, for the actual installation of these motorized shades, it's a very standard process. You are given some mounting brackets, some mounting screws, as well as some wing nuts with the actual shades. And from here, you're going to measure from 1 inch on each side of your window, position the mounting brackets, and then mark them with a pencil and start pre-drilling your holes. Afterwards, you'll mount them, and then you'll insert the mounting screw and fit it through the headboard's slots. And then you'll attach the wing nuts to secure it into place. Now, in terms of what you need for actual installation, you'll want a Phillips head screwdriver, and you'll want a drill with a Phillips bit as well as a 1/8 inch bit, and a ruler just for accurate measurements. Overall, it's a pretty quick setup process, and if you've done something like it before, it won't be too much of an issue. So once you have the SmartWings motorized woven wood shades set up, and you have actually made sure they're level, this is when you can begin actually waking them. Now, when they are shipped out, they're put into sleep mode, so there's no accidental operation while they're being shipped. So this prevents any damage to your shades. Now, to do so, you need to press the programming button on the actual motor, and once you know it's in effect, it will jog the motor once. Now, from this point, you need to hold the stop button on the remote for 2 seconds, and then once it successfully pairs, the motor will jog again twice. And then you're ready to begin actually testing out your shades. So let's talk about actual operation with the SmartWings remote. Now, first off, it is a multi-channel remote, so if you are controlling multiple shades, you can purchase the number of channels you respectively will need to correlate with your shades. Now, this was just a 5-channel remote, but I was only working with 2 actual channels. There was a 0 channel, which will control all shades simultaneously, as well as channel 1, which controlled my one specific shade for testing. Now, if you are going to purchase multiple shades, there are some things to keep in mind about these multi-group group channels. First off, you can specifically set multiple shades to one channel. So if you're buying specifically for one room in your house, you can control them all at once with one specific channel, and then set shades in another room to another channel. Now, I want to talk about some other things going on with the actual settings of this remote. First off, you can do some neat things like set the actual upper and lower limits of your shade, set a favorite position, as well as up the motor speed of the up and down directions when raising and lowering the shade. But there are some nuances to this that I do want to talk about. First off, much of this is controlled via the settings button. Now, the settings button is not on the front of the remote control, but you're going to have to peel off the back, and you will find it directly above the batteries. Now, sometimes it felt a little unnatural having to tap this button to actually enable a settings change or set something like a favorite position, but you're probably not going to change these settings very much, so it's not too much of an issue. Now, another thing to keep in mind with the remote is sometimes when I was changing these settings and getting things set up, it would seem like the actual shade motor would go to sleep and not respond to the remote. So I would have to tap the button on the actual shade motor and put it back into pairing mode and re-enable essentially the remote control. It didn't happen a lot, but I did run into it in a few cases when doing things like adjusting the motor speed. Overall, I much prefer the remote for initial setup, or if I was really fine-tuning in an actual up and down direction with the shade, but you will have to find your own preference. If you're purchasing just a standard smart motor, you're going to be working with this remote extensively, but if you are using a smart home hub, then you may find a little use for the remote over time besides fine-tuning. So with the remote address, let's talk about actual integration with your smart home hub. Now, with the actual Amazon Echo, there are two different ways to actually connect your motorized shades. Now, you can either do so via the Alexa app and set it to discover devices, or also just ask Alexa by voice to discover devices. From here, you need to go over to the actual motor on the shade and hold the button for 6 seconds. Now the LED will turn red and this will show it's in pairing mode. Now from here, once it does actually successfully connect, the motor will jog twice and the LED will turn green and flash 3 times, and you'll successfully pair with your Alexa enabled device. Now in terms of things to do after this, I would highly suggest going into the Alexa app and changing the name of the shade. Since I did have only one shade, I specifically named it Shade 1, so it was easy to control by voice command there. Now, I do want to make a specific note if you are pairing via the Amazon Echo 4th generation. Now, specifically with this device, voice commands are not recognized as smoothly, but there is a very subtle nuance to it, and you may or may not care about this. First off, if you simply tell the shade to go up or down, it's not going to recognize this. But if you tell the shade to raise or lower, it will do so, but it will do the opposite of what you ask and by a minute amount. Instead, with the actual Amazon Echo device, what it recognized was when I had the shade go to a specific percentage interval. Now, what I would have to do is tell Alexa to set the shade to either a flat percent like 0% or 5%, and then up to 100%. 0% will respectfully open the shade all the way, whereas 100% would fully close the shade. And then I could go anywhere in between. Now, it wasn't too much of an issue, specifically since I did also set scheduling via the Alexa app, but you're going to need to consider if a small verbal change will mess up your integration for a voice control on this motorized shade. Overall, it's not too big of an issue, and they specifically tell you only in the instructions once you've actually purchased the Alexa motor, but again, it's not too big a deal. So let's expand a little on actually setting routines via the Alexa app. Now, typically I do set routines based off time versus something like sunset or sunrise. Now, specifically with this, I would set it at a timed interval and then go with the specific command to set the shade to either 0% or 100% to respectfully open the shade fully and close it at night. Now, overall, it was very smooth and I had no actual issue with the actual operation of these routines. Sometimes Alexa would add an extra null isn't responding while actually executing the command, whether it was opening or closing the shade, but there were no issues there. It's just a bit of extra verbiage from Alexa. So let's talk about charging the motor on the shades. Now, you are given a included USB-C charging cable, and you can use it with a power bank or a wall charger to charge the motor up. But there is also the option to purchase a separate solar panel accessory and keep it plugged in indefinitely, so you don't have to worry about charging. Now, in terms of charging times, 6 hours of charging gives around 600 uses of the actual motors, or around half a year of use. So you mostly need to wait if you specifically want to charge it about once or twice half a year, or if you want to just have the solar panel and forget about it. Now, for testing, I was given the solar panel, but I did find it slightly inconvenient. Specifically with the cable, there wasn't really a neat way to tuck it behind the shades since they were so flush to my window, and sometimes it would create some unnecessary bunching when the shade fully went to the top. Overall, you'll just need to really weigh your convenience and think about what your window is like when making this purchase. Now, in terms of the battery life indicator, you're going to look at the motor. Now, if it is flashing red, you know it's low. If it's flashing green, it is charging. And if it's a solid green, it's fully charged. Overall, it's a pretty simple process, and you're not going to have to worry too much about the battery life of the SmartWings woven shades, but do keep these in mind. So let's talk about how well it actually operates. I would say 9 out of 10 times I had no issue with actually the shades. Now, what would happen is sometimes it would catch on the lip of my window at around the halfway point when going down. Now, there was one other small issue. Now, sometimes when going up, the actual lining on the very back of it would catch at the very top pole. So it wouldn't fully descend on one side, and I'd have to actually pull out the lining from the actual plastic piece on the actual motor piece at the very top. Overall, this didn't happen a lot, but I did have to do it at least twice during testing. Now, in terms of the blackout, I did go with the 100% blackout option, and it does have the immediate power to turn a room from fully lit to pure darkness. So if you're wanting privacy or just to have a sounder slumber by removing any extra light creeping into your house, it does so very well. So let's talk about whether you should purchase the SmartWings Motorized woven wood shades. Now, in terms of actual operation, there were no major hiccups. It was just some very minor things, at best small inconveniences. But there is something I do want to keep in mind. First off, I purchased a shade for a small country window, which was a little over 31 inches in width and a little over 52 inches in height. Now for this, it was a little over $400. So if you're trying to theme around a specific room, costs can add up quickly. Overall, mostly you're going to need to consider how big your windows are and how much you can account for in terms of your budget. But in actual operation, it was a very smooth one, and it definitely delivered on the blackout. So a big thanks to SmartWings for providing this customized woven wood shade. And for everyone watching, feel free to leave any questions or comments below, and like and subscribe if you enjoy this style of content. Now for our in-depth written review, be sure to head over to makeuseof.com.